This video, it's not just about how to get the deal done. It's about the harsh lessons that nobody teaches you and the ones that can blindside you after the deal closes. If you're thinking about selling your business or you're already in the process, I'm gonna walk you through the exact lessons that I've learned by selling 6 of my own personal companies and the patterns that I see repeated across 200 plus client deals that I've represented. Look, I've been on both sides of this. I've had the deal where I thought I've negotiated brilliantly, only to learn 6 months later that I left money on the table. And I've sat across from clients who've closed a $20 million transaction and called me a year later struggling with depression or even identity crisis. Look, this isn't theory. This is exactly what happens. And most of it, nobody really prepares you for. Mistake number 1, the identity void that nobody warns you about. You won't know who you are without your business. The day after you close, your calendar's empty. Your team's gone. The mission that's driven you for years, it's disappeared. Look, I've sold for $5 million and spent 6 months asking myself, who am I without this? Most founders, their identity is wrapped up in their business. One day it's everything, and the next day you're making coffee or you're playing golf and you've got nothing to do. No fires, no decisions, just emptiness. That money that you thought would change your life, it changes your circumstances, but it doesn't really change your psychology. The anxiety, the restless drift that comes to you. I've had clients, they've closed 8-figure deals and they feel aimless 3 months later. The number doesn't make you a different person. It just replaces the problem that you had before with a completely different one. Mistake number 2, you're leaving money on the table. Every seller leaves money on the table, every single one. But here's what nobody gets. The question isn't, did you squeeze every penny out of this deal? It's whether you got a fair deal and you can actually live with it. Buyers, they negotiate for a living. You've done this once. You're not outplaying them on pure tactics. I had a client close for $8.2 million. Perfect deal. But then he found out a competitor got 9.1. Same industry, similar size, and it really ate at him for 6 months. His deal, it was actually better structured, but he couldn't stop second guessing that number. The truth is, obsessing over $200,000 that you might have left on the table, it's gonna torture you for years. And that's psychological damage. It's worth way more than money. Mistake number 3, the LOI is where your leverage dies. Once you sign it, the buyer, he owns you psychologically. Once you sign the letter of intent, the buyer, he's gonna own you psychologically. The buyer knows that you're psychologically sold. Sellers, they think it's just a starting point. Buyers, then they know that the moment you're committed, after the LOI, your leverage really collapses. The deal you agree to on day 1 is the best version of that deal that you're gonna get. Anything after that, and it's probably gonna get worse. I've done over 200 transactions, and I can count on my hand the number of times that a deal improved after the LOI stage. Treat the LOI like it's the final contract. Lock in the purchase price, the earnout structure, the seller financing, the payment terms, the non-competes, everything that matters. Don't assume that you're gonna negotiate this later. You won't. I signed one once where I thought I had flexibility on those earnout metrics, but the language was vague. By the time we got to the purchase agreement, the buyer had already financed the deal and positioned themselves as my only option. I really had 0 leverage left. Mistake number 4, earnouts are a trap. A $30 million headline with a $15 million earnout isn't a $50 million sale. It's an $18 million sale, and most sellers don't realize until it's in the buyer's control that every decision impacts the payout. Buyers, they love earnouts because it shifts risk back to you after you've lost control. They get to say that they paid you $50 million, and you have to hope that they hit the target revenue markets in order to get the rest of your money. If you have to accept an earnout, please, please, please obsess over the metrics. Define what counts as revenue, who controls budget, what happens if they restructure, because if it's vague, the buyer will definitely interpret it in their favor every single time. I had a client agree to a $10 million tied to EBITDA. It sounded pretty straightforward. Post-closing, the buyer started charging overhead back to his division that was never there before. He got $3 million instead of $10 million. Mistake number 5, reps and warranties, they can haunt you for years. You are liable for everything you certify inside of your business for the next 12 to 24 months post-closing. What's happening in these reps and warranties is that you're certifying everything that you said and represented is true and accurate to your best knowledge. If any of it turns out to be false, even if you didn't know, the buyer, they can sue for damages upwards of 12 to 24 months after post-closing. That's how long that they can come after you for these things. And if you didn't disclose it, you're on the hook. Most founders, they don't give themselves enough proper time for due diligence on their own business before they actually go to market. Misclassified contractors, unreported revenue, verbal agreements that nobody documented. The buyer, they're eventually going to find it when they gain control. And if you didn't disclose it up front, you're paying for it. Do your own audit before you take your business to market. Hire a lawyer, hire an accountant. Clean up everything that's questionable, because once the buyer finds it during their due diligence, you've either got a renegotiation going on or you're walking away from the deal and you've really already committed to that publicly. Mistake number 6, your team will find out. Control the narrative or lose your best people. Information, it's bound to leak, even when confidentiality is a priority inside of deals. If your best people hear about the sale from someone else, trust can be broken. And the buyer knows that a demoralized team, it's really worthless. You need a communication plan before you close. What's the narrative? Who hears it first? How do you frame it as an opportunity, not a betrayal? One of my clients, he surprised his team at closing. Wanted it to be good news. His number 2 had already figured it out. And he felt disrespected and he left just months after post-closing. The buyer, he was furious. And my client, he carried guilt about it for years. You can't control every leak, but you can control the narrative. Make sure your key people, they hear from you first. Not from a vendor, not from a lender, and definitely not from the rumor mill. Mistake number 7, not everyone's gonna make it through. You can negotiate to protect your team all you want. Once you sell, the buyer, he's gonna control those decisions. The person you fought really hard to protect, he might get cut in 6 months post-closing. It's not personal, it's business. They have their own playbook and their own incentives. As much as you care about your people, the buyer's loyalty is typically to themselves and to their investors. It's not to you. Be sure that your top salespeople are set up during transition, introduce them well, advocate for them, but understand once you sign, their future, it's really in the buyer's hands, not yours. Some are gonna fit, some are gonna leave on their own because there's a culture mismatch, some will get pushed out. And you have to make peace with the outcomes that you can't control. Number 8, your loyalty won't be reciprocated. The buyer's promises, they're gonna disappear the day of closing. The buyer, he promised to preserve your brand, keep your culture, honor your legacy. Then 3 months post-closing, everything changed. The brand got absorbed. Processes, they got standardized. The vision you had spent years building, it got diluted and erased. And the buyer who made all those promises, they had a different plan the entire time. It's not malicious, it's just business. They have their own investors and their own playbook. If something really matters to you, get it in writing with consequences. Don't rely on verbal assurances, because once you sell, you're no longer in control. I had a buyer tell me they'd keep my brand independent. That was in the LOI. 6 months later, they rebranded everything under their parent company. And when I pushed back, they said that market conditions had changed and legally I had no recourse. The language, it was loose. And I learned the hard way that promises made during due diligence are the first thing to erode. Mistake number 9, selling from weakness. The best deals, they're gonna come from a place of strength, not desperation. The best deals, they come from a place when you have leverage. And you only have leverage when you don't need to sell. Burned out, struggling, buyers are gonna smell it and they're gonna lowball you. They'll drag out due diligence knowing that you'll cave just to be done with it. If a buyer senses that you're under pressure or that you're tired, they're gonna use that against you and they're gonna try to knock off 30 to 40% of the purchase price. Sell when your business is growing, when you still have the energy, when buyers are competing for you, not the other way around. That's when you get real value, and that's where you'll have maximum negotiation power. I had a client come to me after running his business for 28 years. He's burned out, ready to retire. Revenue, it had been flat for the last 3 years. We got him offers, but they were all low. Buyers, what they saw was a declining asset, a tired asset with a burned out owner. If he had come to me 5 years earlier, the process would have been much easier when the business was growing, and he probably would have got 2 to 3 times the price. Mistake number 10, the timeline, it's gonna be brutal. 3 months becomes 6, 6 becomes 9, you got a plan for that. A deal that feels like it should close in 3 months, it's probably gonna take 6. Due diligence is exhausting. Lenders, they always need more docs. Lawyers, they need rewrites. Board approvals get delayed. Landlord consents. Supplier transitions. It all stacks up. And you're running the business while managing due diligence and negotiating simultaneously. Most sellers, they tell me it's the most stressful 6 months of their lives. Assume it's gonna take longer than promised. Pace yourself. Don't make any real life decisions based on an optimistic timeline. If you sprint expecting 3 months and get 6, you'll be completely drained by closing. You'll be so burnt out that you won't care anymore and you'll just want it to be done. Mistake number 11, the tax bill, it's gonna be bigger than you think. You need to work with an M&A specialist now, not a standard CPA later. Even with good planning, most sellers, they get blindsided by taxes. If your CPA is telling you you're paying 40% and there's nothing you can do about that, you should fire them. There are strategies, stock versus asset sales, timing, installment plans, different structures, trusts. There are lots of ways that you can save hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, but you have to plan for these up front. You can't do it after the deal closes. Work with a CPA who specializes in M&A transactions before you go to market, not after the exit. It's literally free money that would be left on the table. I had a client close for $12 million. His longtime CPA said he's gonna owe $4.8 million in taxes. He accepted it. 6 months later, he found another founder who'd sold for a similar amount, had paid half that. But by then it's too late. He literally left $2 million on the table because he trusted the wrong advisor. Mistake number 12, sudden wealth is a skill set that you don't have yet. You're gonna make emotional investment decisions in the first 18 months after closing. You've spent 20 years building a business. Now you have $10 million in cash and you have no idea what to do with it. As a founder, you're used to risk and control, managing liquid wealth. That's really passive and boring. So you start making emotional decisions, investing in a friend's business, jumping into that sure thing real estate deal, because you need to feel like you're doing something. You need back in the action. Park the money somewhere safe for 6 months. Let the dust settle, let yourself adjust. Then build a real wealth plan with a fiduciary. Don't make emotional decisions when you're still figuring out who you are. After one of my exits, I put $500,000 into a tech startup because I was bored. And I had a friend who pitched it well. 18 months later, that company folded. The money hurt, but it didn't hurt as much as that I'd made a pure emotional decision because I didn't know what to do with myself. Mistake number 13, family dynamics will shift. You gotta set boundaries or lose relationships and money. Once you have serious money, you're gonna hear from people that you haven't heard from in years. Relatives with investment opportunities, friends asking for loans, siblings expecting help with their mortgages, adult children expecting handouts. Some genuinely need it, others are just opportunistic. And it's really gonna mess with your head if you don't set boundaries. Money doesn't fix relationships, it really complicates them. Decide up front what you're willing to do. You gotta set hard limits, and if you need a buffer, put a financial advisor in place so you're not always the bad guy saying no. I had a client who sold for $18 million. Within 6 months, his brother-in-law asked him to invest in a franchise. His sister needed help with her mortgage. His college roommate pitched him on a business idea. And he said yes to all of it. A year later, he'd given away $3 million. And the relationships he had, they were worse, not better, because now there was resentment on both sides. Mistake number 14, have a post-close sale plan before you close. Look, waking up after closing and selling your business with no plan in place is a recipe for depression and feeling lost. Your business has been your identity, your structure, your purpose. Once it's gone, you're gonna need something to fill that void. Travel, hobbies, board seats, angel investing, it doesn't matter what, but you're gonna need something. Because waking up the day after closing with nothing to do, it's a recipe for depression, regret, and a pattern of emotional decisions that you'll likely regret for years. So you really want to start thinking about this now. Be intentional, give yourself permission to transition, not just check out. Maybe you take 6 months off and you do some traveling. Maybe you join a board seat. Maybe you start doing a little bit of angel investing. The specifics, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you've thought about it and you're not just winging it. Without a plan, you're likely to drift. You get bored. You start getting involved in deals you have no business being in, and it's just because you're restless. Most founders, they end up doing it again. The discomfort fades, the lessons stick. Whether it's a new venture, a board seat, or angel investing, most sellers, they find their way back to building. And honestly, that's the right thing to do. You have rare skills now. The pattern recognition that you've built through the years of running your business, that's genuinely uncommon. Use it when you're ready. The second or third time around, you don't have to take nearly as much risk as you did before. You can invest a little bit of money, get a little bit of equity. You can take advisory roles. You can take board seats. There's a number of things that you can do post-exit to maintain your cash flow and stay in the game. So just keep an open mind. There's a strong possibility that you'll use your skill set from a business in a new venture. And that might be exactly what you need in order to feel alive again. If you want to talk through your specific situation, please reach out. We do a free $3,000 business appraisal. It's a valuation for business owners who are serious or looking to sell sometime in the future. There's no pressure, there's no sales pitch, just honest advice from someone who's been through this process themselves. And if you found this helpful, go watch this video next. It walks you through how private equity buyers think and what they're really looking for when they evaluate your business. You really need to understand that if you're going into a deal.